go ahead and turn over to Ephesians chapter 5. It's where we'll begin in a moment. I think, as most of you know, Liz and I had to go to Texas a couple of times with her grandfather being sick. Ended up being on his deathbed and went for the funeral, of course. And we both wanted to go and see him again and be there for Dawn, obviously. And when we heard that he was as sick as he was, we knew we would go. We just didn't know what day. So it was never really a question of if we were going to go or not. And I say that because there were some of his pretty close family members who didn't feel that way, and it was strange for us to kind of see that. And there was one in particular who, he said as much that he was not going to come out of spite against his grandfather. He was basically holding bitterness against Lincoln. And when all this was happening, we were talking with Dawn about it. Of course, it was extremely difficult for her to hear things like that. But it just kind of drove home to me that man, he'll never have that opportunity again to honor his father and his mother. He'll never get that back. It doesn't matter if he changes his mind in a week or if he changes his mind in 30 years, that opportunity for him it's gone. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit today, not about that exactly, but just about making most of the opportunities that you have, because you don't know if that's the only one you're going to have with somebody when you're witnessing, with whatever decisions you're making every day. So it kind of drove that home for me a little more, that you just don't know the importance of each decision that you make until sometimes it's too late. We'll begin in Ephesians 5, verse 1. Therefore be imitators of God as beloved children, and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. But sexual immorality and all impurity or covetousness must not even be named among you, as is proper among saints. Let there be no filthiness, nor foolish talk, nor crude joking which are out of place, but instead let there be thanksgiving. For you may be sure of this, that everyone who is sexually immoral or impure, or who is covetous, that is, an idolater, has no inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of these things the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. Therefore do not associate with them, for at one time you were darkness, but now you are the light of the world. Walk as children of light, for the fruit of light is found in all that is good and right and true. And try to discern what is pleasing to the Lord. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. For it is shameful even to speak of the things that they do in secret. But when anything is exposed by the light, it becomes visible. For anything that becomes visible is light. Therefore it says, "Awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you." And 15 and 16 here, the next, are kind of the key verses I wanted to highlight with kind of what we're talking about. 15, look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise but wise, making the best use of the time, because the days are evil. And if Paul is instructing the church then that the time is short, how much more so is that true for us today? And how much more should we take that seriously? You can turn over to 1 Corinthians chapter 5. And a lot of what he's talking about here, what we're going to read, he's talking about marriage. But there's an important point made here that I wanted to kind of highlight. We'll begin in verse 29. Okay, sorry, it was chapter 7, not 5. Chapter 7, verse 29. This is what I mean, brothers. The appointed time has grown very short. From now on, let those who have wives live as though they had none, and those who mourn as though they were not mourning, and those who rejoice as though they were not rejoicing, and those who buy as though they had no goods, and those who deal with the world as though they had no dealings with it. For the present form of this world is passing away. And kind of what I took from that when I was reading that last night, I made a note here that, basically that we're not normal, and we can't act like we're normal. The time we live in and the station we have is not a normal thing. So we can't use our time and the opportunities we have as if we're just a normal person in the world, Obviously the time is growing shorter with every moment, and, we as Christians understand what that means more than most. Let's jump over to Psalm chapter 39. We'll begin in verse 1. I said, I will guard my ways, that I may not sin with my tongue. I will guard my mouth with a muzzle, so long as the wicked are in my presence. I was mute and silent. I held my peace to no avail, and my distress grew worse. My heart became hot within me. As I mused, the fire burned, then I spoke with my tongue. O Lord, make me know my end, and what is the measure of my days. Let me know how fleeting I am. Behold, you have made my days a few handbreadths, and my lifetime is as nothing before you. Surely all mankind stands as a mere breath. Surely a man goes about as a shadow. Surely for nothing they are in turmoil. Man heaps up wealth and does not know who will gather. And now, O Lord, for what do I wait? My hope is in you. And this is one of David's psalms, and it occurred to me that while I was reading that, David probably knew better than anyone kind of the weight of decisions. I mean, there are decisions David made that both gave life and directly ended people's lives, because of the decisions he made in the moment of what to do. And although David is obviously counted among the righteous, that's still a heavy thing, and I'm sure there were in some of those moments that David didn't know what was going to be the outcome of that decision until later. I don't think David was thinking like, this is going to cause someone to die, but that's what happened, and both on the flip side too, decisions he made that were within the will of the Lord too, that we don't even know what effects that had for the good. I can look out and see people here who are here here directly because of decisions that other people who are here made, and even other people who aren't here. I think about that a lot when I'm working on our video stuff. When I'm busy with a week and I want to get a sermon up and I'm kind of lagging behind, I think about like who may see this or not see it if I don't do what I need to do. Just this little thing, like just rendering out this video and uploading on YouTube, can get kind of in a routine, but it's like I don't know who that's going to affect. I don't know who's going to see that. I don't know. I look at Sandy up there and think about the opportunity he had to watch us long before we ever had any idea who he was or that he existed. And he's here now in part because of those little things that everyone does that makes some of this possible. So, it kind of drives it home that sometimes you just don't know. There are probably things I'll never ever know, that little things that uploading a sermon the day I did had an impact. I try to think about that when I'm doing that work. Go ahead and turn over to Colossians chapter 4. And this will be our final scripture here. I feel like it kind of wraps up the essence of the message, of making the most of the opportunities. Because again, we don't know. Sometimes we just don't know the importance of them. Colossians chapter 4. Begin at verse 2. Continue steadfastly in prayer, being watchful in it with thanksgiving. At the same time, pray also for us, that God may open to us a door for the word, to declare the mystery of Christ, on account of which I am in prison, that I may make it clear which is how I ought to speak. Conduct yourselves wisely toward outsiders, making the best use of the time and the opportunities. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person.